Good evening. Sue Dillon, our chair, is going to be a little bit late getting on. She's got some comments also, and I'll watch for her as she gets on. I'm going to try to fill you in to the best of my knowledge from where we stand. Um, I know everybody that's been a club director for a number of years remember that we've had discussions about doing summer tryouts for 2 or 3 years at least, maybe longer than that. It was my hopes that we would get through this season so that in the fall, I'd only planned to have a meeting and a session concerning summer tryouts in the fall with all the directors and also high school representatives. I think I sent you guys a timeline of what's happened, but late June, sometime I had gotten a email from Kevin Wendelboe from Carolina region, basically, and I think I copied you on his email to me along with his attachment, basically saying, hey, we've got clubs in our region that's decided to go to summer tryouts, and we're changing our guidelines and rules about that, and then attached the explanation of what their board decided to do. Since that time, I had gotten a email from Alex Singh at Grand Strand saying that due to clubs in the Carolina region close to him having them, they were going to have them. That shortly followed a few other clubs, Upward being one of them. I can't remember the other ones, but it was kind of a snowball effect. So we had a meeting with the board, I think shortly after Kevin and Alex's email to me, to discuss it, and decided that we would give waivers to clubs that were affected by this, meaning close to the border or whatever. But obviously everybody's understands that if Club A, 10 miles from the border, does it, then Club B, that's 30 miles from the border, that's affected by Club A, has got to do it. It's just a snowball effect, assuming that it affects them. I still believe, just a side note, that this is not going to affect everybody. There's some smaller clubs that, run a program. For example, I live in Greenwood. They, one of the smaller clubs here in 96, South Carolina, speaking with her today, said it probably is not going to affect them just because their kids just play to, get good in high school. But anyway, after that, it's just kind of been a snowball effect since late June, I guess. Some emails went out. It's my understanding that Upwards sent an email to clubs in their area, and I vaguely remember reading some of that. There's been so much going on that I don't have the details on that. So Sue and I, and Sue, you're online now. You can unmute yourself. We've been talking, and the stance, and we've made no hard decisions whatsoever. Been trying to keep everybody posted with what's going on. I can say this: since early July, I've been talking with other regions. I think I've talked to 12 or 13 so far. Most of those are either doing this or they have already done it. For example, like Florida region, some close to us did it 4 or 5 years ago, meaning that they basically allow clubs to try out anytime after early July. And but they don't recognize the membership to USAV until, I think theirs was September 1st. I've got this written down. North Texas has probably been one of the few that's done it for a long time. A friend of mine, and and I've spoke to him again, spoke to him several times over the last few years, but they've done it. I think to the ones I've talked to, as far as I can tell, there's about 15 or 16 regions, and I think there's more than that. It's just have not gotten in touch with everybody. Once end of June comes and the end of USAV tournaments, a lot of them shut down for several weeks, sometimes a month, taking a break. Honestly, it was my hope that we could get through this year and have some kind of guidelines among both organizations. We've worked well together in the past. I hope we'll continue to work well together in the future. Understand some points of what they're trying to do to, protect their members and stuff like that. So tonight, I really wanted to kind of give you an overview. We've not made hard decisions. Like I said, we had made a decision in the 22nd or 23rd, somewhere along there, sent an email out to everybody saying that we would give waivers if you wanted to do a tryout early, but that our belief currently is we would not recognize a membership or a contract until the normal deadline date, which I think is the early November, maybe the second weekend in November, somewhere along there, whatever that date is. So that's kind of where we stand. Sue, I'm going to let you make a statement and then we'll open it up for comments and questions by directors. Sue.
Okay, I just wanted to say that, like I said, it flooded in. This is only about a week old, and Jimmy's been doing all kinds of research on it. And unfortunately, the North Carolina decision really forced our hand, because the real issue is that some people say, well, let's just sanction the clubs that do this. And there's a couple reasons that I feel that's a bad idea, because if there's so many different organizations now, you get SAVL, AAU, JVA, and us. And if we decide we're going to sanction them and say, okay, USAV is sanctioned, they're just going to go under the AAU umbrella. And then we also have the chance that we lose them as teams participating in our region. And since it's so easy to make the switch now, that could be a lot of teams. And this is very inconvenient. I understand it's very inconvenient for most of us, because I'm a club director myself, and we're trying to scramble and see what we can do, because we're leaning towards doing it ourselves. We're not sure yet, but we're, I guess, I'm sure a lot of you have questions. We've had a couple of days to process all of this. The main thing is, when they first came up with this whatever years ago, the whole purpose of it was that they wanted to get tryouts over with so that kids could enjoy their high school season and not have the recruiting pressure from clubs coming around their matches every time in high school, and they can just enjoy their school season. There's no practices or anything during the school season. And then you just jump in and start your practices in November. So it's supposed to take the pressure off from that. And also logistically, and anybody that's registered for tournaments, it's much easier to know early what teams you have and what level they're going to be, because everything seems to be opening earlier and earlier and filling quicker, especially for the national tournaments. And logistically, it makes it easier to go early. Like I said, I've had a couple of days to digest it and look into it, but I'm sure there's a lot of questions. But the other thing I want everybody to know is that this has nothing to do with Jimmy, because I had a couple of people like lash out and say, well, as commissioner, you got to do this, and commissioner, this is a club to club decision. And when Jimmy said that they aren't going to recognize a membership in USAV till whenever, that's when their USAV membership is over. But if you go into a contract, say we have tryouts and I go into a contract with someone, that contract between me and that family is binding. So we want to make sure that we tell these girls, if you're going to sign the contract, that is binding. Not that any of us want to take anybody to court or anything, but Jimmy is saying that USAV doesn't recognize them until their USAV membership is over from the last year. And I think probably by next season, we'll probably be moving our date to September 1st also, because it's kind of inevitable. Like Jimmy said, we were trying to get through this summer, but it's kind of just the way the landscape is for junior volleyball right now. And there's really no way to push back, because I feel, in my opinion, there's only negatives. If we were to sanction people, we lose people, because there's other avenues they can take. And I, for one, really like USAV as a much better organization, much more organized. I just really enjoy USAV. So I'd hate to see people jump ship and say, well, I'm just going to go play AAU or JVA, when we can just try to make this work. We're all muddling together. Like I said, I know it's inconvenient. I know it's a pain in the butt. And every club will definitely just be making their own decision about what they want to do. That's basically all I wanted to say. If anybody wants, if you want to open for questions.
Before I open it up to everybody else, let me mention a couple of things. One, I think it's crucial that, and there's really just two organizations in South Carolina, and that's SAVL, who works under AAU/JVA, and we've worked well together. We've worked together for the betterment of everybody in the region, where we hold each other the dates, the tryouts, the commitments, tournaments. We almost have the same tournament assigners and stuff like that. So I hope that relationship will continue. They offer quality tournaments. We offer quality tournaments. So there's positives there. What I have communicated to Corey and Alex, who are Corey's, I guess, would be what you'd call over SAVL. I've communicated to him and Ben, and I'm sorry, I can't remember Ben's last name, is my request and desire is, number one, let's not step on the toes of the high school league. I've been doing this for 30 years, and we have always placed the high school, middle school and high school as primary, and being considerate of them training, or, not trying to do conflicts, or not telling the kids play club, don't play school, stuff like that. So I can only ask that you continue to do the same thing, should you decide to do tryouts now, either in late July or going into August, because they start in August. So that's number one. And number two is, we're going to try to, we got to work this problem. It is a problem. It's come up. It started in Carolina region. So rather than having a bunch of complaints and a bunch of accusations and pointing fingers, let's work the problem and find some solutions. I want tonight to listen to you so that we can try to fine tune this. And then hopefully, I'm not sure how much we can do this year as far as dates are concerned, but I do believe that John Doe and Sarah Smith that's out there, all the families that try out, I certainly would like for them to have the opportunity to, if they want to, do multiple tryouts. So they're not locked into one club early because they did their tryouts a week earlier than Club B. I hope we can find some kind of common ground on that, so that it gives kids a chance. And finally, I do believe that we're probably talking about 10% at the most of the kids that really clubs are after, the Sarah Stud. The rest of them is going to fall in line based on who gives them the best service. And I've always said, club that gives the best service, quality coaching, is transparent to them, communicates to them, gives them great training, is going to keep most of their kids. And you can see that in the survey that we did. So with that said, I'll shut up and I want to listen to you guys. Try not to talk over each other and try to keep it to a minute or less, your statement or comment. Who's up?
Jimmy, can you guys hear me?
Yeah, just say who's talking.
It's Andrew Garland, FCA Upstate.
All right.
Hey, how many clubs are actually right now planning on having tryouts here in a few weeks? What's that number?
I have no idea.
Well,
only ones I know of currently is the two that I've heard of, and that's Grand Strand and Upward. I have not heard positive from anybody else.
Well, I think what you're doing tonight is phenomenal. I wish this would have been done before the decision had been made to give waivers. If we could have had input on this and come to talk about a solution, I think that would have been much better than to do it after the fact. Secondly, it's frustrating for us here in the Upstate to find out about waivers being given from the Stars Club. That was hit social media. I think that's something that we should have heard from you in the region before we heard that. I found out through social media.
Andy, let me interrupt. First is I did send that out before you heard that. It went out in an email, and I sent everybody a copy of that, the date that it went out. So that did go out. And
The email, you talking about the email saying there could be waivers given?
yes,
Okay, yeah, I saw it was buried, bottom of the email. But I'm talking about, this conversation. I think what you're doing tonight is great. I just think it should have been done because it's very controversial. And I think the input that you're seeking tonight would have been much more effective had it been done before the waivers are actually given out. I think my biggest thing is we need a level playing field. And so, essentially you're talking about 5%, 5 or 10% of kids. Well, it's much lower than that. Most kids don't play college volleyball that play club volleyball, period. So you're really probably talking about 5 to 10 kids total that quote other clubs are after. So I think we're kind of throwing the baby out with the bathwater here. By my estimations, we're affecting 1,500 families alone in the upstate for really probably 3 or 4 kids that one of the clubs that wants to have these tryouts is talking about, that North Carolina clubs are after them. So that's one thing I would like to address. I mean, just the chaos, confusion, the pressure we're putting on these families. I mean, I'm hearing it from families from so many clubs that they're really stressed out about this, or under a lot of pressure. I think a lot of this, we may be going to summer tryouts, and that's fine. But I really feel like, this is something that we need to all be doing, not 3 or 4 clubs, and the rest of us are doing it in the fall. And, again, the whole high school thing, that's a really big issue as well. And that's going to be a major problem. High school ball is sacrosanct. And I think we all agree to that. And we've gotten sideways with them. I know there's some issues with that right now. But I think this is something that really needed some time to be. And again, if we all go to summer tryouts, that's fine. That's great. But we need to have a plan, a committee, work with the high school league. And this is something we could have held off to 2022. I mean, we could have. I mean, you're talking about 2 clubs.
okay, let's wrap it up so we can get everybody in. Yeah.
But I just really feel like this has been, and I'm sorry, but poorly planned, poorly thought out. We didn't think about the consequences, and it's not about the families. For me, it's anything that restricts the options of kids to try to multiple clubs, I am going to be against. And I think this does that. Now Sue mentioned, so correct me if I'm wrong, I need to understand this. So the clubs that are having tryouts in a few weeks, if they offer a contract and money's passed hands to the club, is that binding or not? Did I misunderstand Sue or not?
Want me to take that, Jimmy?
Yeah, I can answer it.
Okay, go ahead.
At this point, our region, USAV, is not going to hold it as binding until that November date, as I said earlier.
So these are actually not even tryouts. I mean, so I think it's very misleading and disingenuous to call for clubs to call these tryouts, especially to splash it over social media as tryouts. I mean, it's maybe it's semantics, but it can't be a tryout then. I mean, kids, and I'm glad you sent that email out. I think it's very important to reinforce to families that any club holding tryouts right now, it's more of an evaluation period, and that nothing binding is until October, November. Would you guys agree to that?
Yeah, and let me interrupt, and I'm gonna give it to somebody else so we can get through this. We don't want to be here till midnight tonight. One, you talked about an earlier announcement. Well, I wish we would have had an earlier announcement, but unfortunately, all this has happened within a few week period, and we're scrambling to react rather than plan for it.
Jimmy, that was your decision. You could have easily have stopped it and said, no, we're not doing anything until next summer. I mean, that's
no. Sorry, I can't. I don't have that right to make a ruling on another organization. Nor do I have
saying the contracts aren't binding. So I'm kind of confused.
I know.
Sue, yeah, go ahead.
What he's saying is, Corey is with SABL and AAU. He gave us the courtesy of telling us he asked for a waiver, but technically he didn't need our permission because he can just do it under the AAU umbrella or SABL. So
Right.
Jimmy has no control over what he does. He can't tell him not to do it. And Corey gave us the courtesy of telling us, and then Alex did the same thing. But again, they're under different organizations. They're not doing it under the USAB umbrella. So Jimmy has no authority.
Well,
sorry, Sue, this is Jessica. Just to make sure I understand with what Garland is saying. Also, there's 2 different sides of this. There's your parent-player contract with your organization. That's a transfer of money Jimmy, USAV, SAVL, AAU has no jurisdiction over that. That's a civil contract. That's different than your quote unquote club commitment in the USAV system, which Jimmy, Palmetto Region, USAV would potentially have some ability to assign, reassign, unlock somebody from a commitment. There's two different levels of contract / commitment here.
Right. If SAVL decides, or I know I'm confusing everybody, the AAU, SAVL, that umbrella, if they want to go ahead and do it, they can do whatever they want. They don't really have any regulations. That's part of the issue. We try to have a kind of a regulated system and deadlines and all that to keep it organized. And they just can have it's kind of a free for all, which is kind of the way things are going, which is how we're having a hard time keeping up. Because if Jimmy wanted to sanction Corey for doing this, it doesn't affect him. All he's going to say is, well, that's fine. I'll just run AAU events and we won't attend Palmetto events. And that hurts everybody in the long run. So it is kind of a conundrum. There's no really good answer. And it's not as if Jimmy wasn't telling everybody. North Carolina made their decision. Then we heard from Corey, then we heard from Alex. And then all of a sudden we're like, oh God, what are we going to do? Because they're going to do it anyway. They were basically just giving us a courtesy. Hey, this is what's happening. Because like Jimmy said, it's going to be a trickle down effect. And pretty soon it'll be in Columbia. Because it'll be this club's doing it, that club's doing it. So what he's saying is he can't stop it from happening. That's, I think, the misunderstanding.
Well, if we're a member of JVA, then what's to stop me from doing anything, abiding by any PVA rules at all?
Nothing.
That just
You don't have
you
to.
guys.
You don't have to.
And
You
so
just you could necessarily not then ever attend any USAV Palmetto Region tournament.
Right. Mhm.
Right.
yeah, so
All the Upward and all Grand Strand and anybody else that decided to do it, we wouldn't have those teams playing.
Let me interrupt, guys, just say this. I've not spoke with other SAVL primary clubs, but I have spoke with via email and phone, Alex and Corey, and I do believe that they want the best for South Carolina. Even though there's two organizations, we've got to have some kind of structure, and I think they do believe in some kind of structure that we can work together. This is started, I know you're pointing fingers again. I asked that we try to work the problem and not point fingers, but this started in North Carolina. It really started earlier in other regions. It's just coming here. It actually happened last year during COVID, and because North Carolina's high school league, thing changed, or dates changed. But again, we need to work the problem and find out what can be done. We're not saying to anybody out there that you've got to do an August tryout or a November tryout. We're saying that this year you've got the choice of doing what you want to do. And we're going to try to work around and work with both organizations to see if we can find a solution going into 2022 to avoid the high school conflict and try to make it best for everybody.
Jimmy,
Yes.
this is Jan Carino.
Yes.
Hey, so I'm a club director and I'm a high school coach. And when I heard the news that there were going to be club tryouts being held the first week that we as high school coaches are able to start our tryouts, right? That was pretty upsetting. I've talked to a lot of other high school coaches who are upset as well by that. Okay. So for instance, I have some girls who play for Upward. That week that Upward is having tryouts, we run a camp for 3 hours in the morning. The girls work that camp. We have 2 hours of tryouts after that. And then they're expected to go to tryouts for Upward later that day. And in my opinion, that's a disadvantage for those girls. And I don't understand why they are choosing the first week of high school volleyball to hold tryouts.
Jan, that would have to be a question to them. That's not, yeah, that's not.
I will say, hey, Jan, I will say this, in the spirit of this, when it was first brought about, they were supposed to be doing this in dead weeks and weekends. So they should be trying to work around the high schools. I don't know. I don't have an answer for that either.
Yeah.
They're supposed to be during dead weeks and weekends.
There's two dead weeks in July. This past week and the last week in July are dead weeks. that they could have scheduled. So,
Jan, going off of what you said, this is Haley Horgan from C1, and I'm also a high school coach as well.
yeah,
And it was super disappointing to hear not only that they were going to have tryouts during that first week when we have a dead week, the week before.
right.
And it's also disappointing that they're not on this meeting for us to be able to talk to them.
Exactly.
Right.
But also, I have been told by my girls who play at Upward that, hey, coach, we're also going to have practices. And so I hear what you're saying, Jimmy, at the beginning of, hey, we're going to try and work together and we'll try and put something out there. But if Upward is not here, then I don't really understand how we're supposed to get to any consensus, because we're not able to say, hey, this is what's bothering us.
Right.
And here's what's bothering us for our girls, because they're saying that this takes pressure off. My girls are literally saying, well, what if I have to choose?
Mhm.
Where do I go? I'm having to change my, times and everything. And with COVID last year, high school ball is important. All of our kids are being pulled back into school. They're all having this opportunity to come together.
Right.
And, it's very disappointing that they're not here, because unfortunately, like Sue and Jimmy, you guys aren't able to answer our questions. So, how do we actually get everybody together to where it is for the betterment of our athletes?
Right.
Because that's what the point is.
Right.
Would
Exactly.
utilize also vacation time, team camps, individual camps. I mean, good luck,
Well, this is Rachel Couch with FCA Midlands. That's what my heart hurts about. I mean, we're reducing family time tremendously, and there's no breaks for bodies to mend,
Right.
or there's for any kind of weight training season, any kind of, we're rolling into where no breaks are allowed anymore, and that dinner time at the table is reduced. So we really need to pray and think about, it's not just us, and I'm a director as well, how it impacts our clubs, but this is impacting families. And I get the idea it was supposed to take the pressure away from the families. I understand that, but I think it's kind of working as we're hearing feedback here. It's just doing the opposite. We're just reducing that break that these kiddos get to spend time with their families.
I 100% agree. And the email that they sent out, that actually was, we were sent an email saying, hey, by the way, if you do decide to run a summer tryout, please try and stay within your organization. I had girls that did not play for Upward who received the email that Upward was having summer tryouts. And, it talks about how, other sports don't have breaks. Well, I think it's fine for like them to feel that way, but these girls do need a break, and so do their families, and they need vacation. And we've had a lot happen in the last 2 years. And just going back to it, like, I 100% agree with what you just said, because again, if Upward's not on here, I think we're just kind of talking to each other, unfortunately, which is frustrating.
Let me interrupt just a second. I did just about 6 hours ago read an email from Ben. I'm sorry, I don't remember his last name, with Upward.
Stars.
Okay. And I had asked those questions. I said, I'd appreciate it. I don't know what, I guess no one is from Upward that's on here. I haven't gone through the contact list, but I'd asked some of those questions. He stated in an email earlier, a couple of days ago, that they would definitely work with players. Their tryouts were on a Saturday and a Sunday and a Monday and a Tuesday, I think. I may be wrong on the weekend dates, but they would, if it conflicted with schools, they said they would work with them. They were doing the same. So, and I'm sorry, I don't know what they've done in the past, but I know a lot of clubs do open gyms, clinics, camps through the summer months, including August. So they were doing something on a Sunday afternoon called, I don't know, sorry, I do not know that information. These are questions that you guys may want to contact them directly if you're in the upstate and are affected by that. But it was my understanding they were just doing trainings on Sunday. They were not having team trainings or something like that. It was just open gym type things. That's what I was told on an email.
Right.
They're calling them training pods, and they're putting pods for the teams together.
Okay.
So.
But they are
so-
they are having teams practice.
Well,
So-
let me do this just a second so we all can get through this. We're really, kind of like Haley said, we're spinning our wheels because we don't have answers. The region doesn't have answers yet. I have asked it, and we need to work the problem. So I'd like to hear ideas and suggestions. Again, we're not forcing anybody to do anything, but if we definitely want suggestions on how to work this for consideration for the future.
Okay, can I just ask one more question? This is Jan. So if all clubs are given the opportunity to have summer tryouts, then once they have their summer tryouts, they would start practice. They're gonna have practices. So then we, as high school coaches, and I'm a club coach, I'm a club director as well, but I have a small club and this doesn't really affect me with my club. But then, so we are going to be fighting as high school coaches. We are going to be expecting our girls to be practicing every day during the high school season, as well as they will be expected to be practicing with their clubs. Is that correct? Is
Jan,
that what would happen?
well,
with
let
clubs?
me answer her first, is that it is the regions, at least mine, and I think our board would support this, that we would highly discourage any kind of team practices, any practices, unless it's, everybody's been doing open gyms. I've been doing that for as long as I can
Right.
remember. But any kind of team practices that would conflict during the high school season. The purpose of some of these other regions that I've specifically talked to is that they'd get them over with before high school season started. They would basically recommend a dead period during high school season and then start back, and they would actually do tryouts. A lot of them do tryouts again in the fall, which is in our normal tryout period, in order to pick up any players that's moved in or relook at teams. I don't know. I just was told that, but it would be, personally me, I would be highly encouraging nothing during high school season.
Jimmy, this is Haley again. So is there a way that for you to advocate for us as Palmetto Region, for you to reach out to Grand Strand and Upward, and for you to get this information for us? Because for us to have to turn around, especially with most of us being high school coaches and everything, to have to turn around and ask Upward, hey, what are you doing? And then they may or may not answer us. I mean, they're playing in our tournaments, and I think that it would be fair for us to say, what exactly are our athletes expected to do that are trying out for you? That are going to say, okay, yeah, I'm going to go play for Upward. I would just like to see what are the rules that they have, because I feel like if we move towards this, we're going to have these highly discouraged or whatever verbiage we're going to have, and that's going to be a set of rules. So what are their rules that they're moving forward with?
And Haley, I have actually already wrote that email, but have not had a response. My question to them was, first, confirm that you're not going to conflict with high school. You'll give the player the choice of, or encourage the player to go to the high school program over a club program. Two, are the commitments being signed in August? And is there, what I wanted to find out is, if, let's say that Club B that's in the area wants to have a tryout and does not have one in the summer, but is going to have it in the fall, can Sarah, who's tried out with Upward or whoever in the fall, also have the right to go try out with somebody else in the fall, later in the fall? So I wanted to know exactly what is the commitment there. Part B of that question is, are you going to start collecting money? And then part C of it was, if you do both of the first and Sarah decides she wants to go to Club B, what are you letting them out of the contract? So I've asked those specific questions and I've not received an answer, but I certainly will get those answers, try to get as much detail as possible and communicate that with the clubs in the upstate. And I'm assuming that would be the same questions for any club that's wherever they are in the state that's going to consider doing summer tryouts, wherever it is.
So Jimmy, this is Jessica and Bill with MVP. We are an SABL club slash also Palmetto Region Club. We play in both tournaments. First off, wanted to say we have always disagreed with early tryouts. For those of you who've been in any of the meetings, you know that we've been strong advocates against this process. We don't see a single advantage, not one, to players or families. And all of the dozens of people and colleagues and friends I've spoken to in every region across the country that does this, I haven't found a single person that does it and actually likes it. So I will start with that. But it does also sound like we kind of have pockets around the state. And so I think it's great that we all are on the call and that we're, keeping informed of what's happening at a region level. But I would definitely encourage like little pockets of the state. Like, if you have a core group of 4 or 5 clubs that most players are doing multiple tryouts with, to have conversations with that small core group. And that may be more work on your end, Jimmy, but I know we've reached out to some of the clubs in Charleston, and it sounds like we in Charleston have a core philosophy that nobody seems to really think this is a good idea. And we, as a little pocket in South Carolina, are planning to continue doing things the same way all together and sending out a statement to all of our families that nothing's going to be changing here in Charleston. So I definitely think that might be one approach, is to at least try to start figuring out if there are pockets of the state where different subgroups of clubs can come to an agreement together, instead of us all necessarily trying to come to one consensus as a whole region.
Okay. Let me interrupt just a second, and there's some questions in the chat that I have not answered. How will clubs be potentially able to suspend members for non-payment of previous seasons if they won't have USA memberships or that oversight? Lauren, I honestly at this point do not know until I find out from them. If we're going, in the past, we have worked together on that. I will say this, and I've said this to our board for 3 or 4 years now. USAV, our attorney, their attorney, all have agreed that we have no legal right to suspend a player as a region. That is a contract between the individual club as an independent business and that member. I've told them we have done it as a benefit for you guys, but nobody has pulled the card and said, we're going to take an attorney and show you can't do this. So with just FYI, and I've communicated this to the board for 3 or 4 years. Just quickly, A-Town said they're for sticking together and saying this is not good. Yeah, the other ones I think I have answered. I'll look and see if there's anything else. Who else would like
Hey,
to
Jimmy,
take?
it's Rachel again.
Yes.
Jimmy? Okay, go ahead. I'll talk when you're done.
Okay. Thank you. I think for all of us, like I disagree with early tryouts as well. And I have a small club, but I'm always an advocate for the athlete and their families within FCA. I think whenever you guys decide, because you asked for suggestions, and what I want to stay on the line with that, is that just clear the line. Like if they can do a contract with their club and that's binding, that thread alone is enough to keep them where they are if they do early tryouts. Like,
Yep.
We need to know that for sure. And
Yep.
then language like discourage and suggested stuff like that, it just makes the line gray. So if there's not a clear line and rules where they can and cannot do things, clubs will breach that rule and do what serves that club. So for me, I think whatever you guys decide, again, I'm against early tryouts. Just clear the lines and make it definitive language. So it is binary versus just this gray area. If you can, as much as you can.
Yeah, and understand, as I've said in the past, we've got to have both parties agree to the same principle of rules, because they cannot come to USAV Palmetto region and say, we want you to do A and B. There's no authority there, nor can we go to SAVL and tell them to do something. In the past, up until this year, when what they're saying is their hand was forced, and it was by Carolina region, we've worked well together on the same rules. We've enforced contracts, we've used the same referees, we've used the same dates, same commitments and everything. So yes,
Jimmy, I have a
I hear
question.
you. We'll do that. I'm sorry, who's speaking?
This is Amber.
Okay.
Has anyone reached out to the high school league to see if they will be eligible to play high school sports if they're practicing with club during season?
Yes, I did actually, Amber, and they can. There's nothing. Yeah,
Nothing.
this is Haley, and there's nothing that says that they can't because soccer actually conflicts with soccer season. So I've already reached out to them.
Because I've heard of instances being on, multiple that would make them eligible. So, okay. Thank you, Haley.
You're welcome.
I want to emphasize again about the high school league. Guys, I think everybody that's been experienced and done this for a little while realizes if we get in a war with the high school, we're going to lose. ADs and coaches get pissed. It's going to be a losing situation. So we've got to continue to put them as a priority. I'm still open for ideas or suggestions on how we work this problem.
Well, Jimmy, I had something. Hello, this is Valerie Long from
Okay.
War Eagles.
Yes.
I'm in Clover, South Carolina, and right across the border is CVC, CJV, and Gaston Galaxy, all within a 20-mile radius from where we have practices. So we were also in this situation to have like us be forced even last year when Carolina region decided to do their tryouts earlier. Now, we didn't have tryouts, but we were allowed to, by you, sign our 18U if they were going to come back anyway. They wanted to know we were still going to be having a team with COVID and all of that. So they just wanted to be reassured, yeah, we're going to stay with you, but if how do we know you're going to operate? And so that was the fear then. Now we're carried over to the same situation to where they're having it only for 15, 16, 17, and 18U. So now I feel like, well, in order to give my girls a peace of mind that we will operate next year, and because they get scrambled, they feel forced to take a position over there because they're offered a position over there. And I can't offer anything to my 15U, to my 16U. So I feel like I'm always in this situation because they're so close to us geographically. And now I know all of them are doing it. The only ones I'm not sure about is Southern Legacy, Palmetto Rage, and us. We're real close together regionally. And I want to be on the same page with them as well. Like, I don't want to make enemies to anybody. I just would like it to be a fair, fair playing field, like with Carolina region. And because my girls will go over there if they think I won't have enough for 17U team. Even this past year, I didn't have a 17 or a 16U team. Why? Because everybody went to early tryouts over there and I didn't have enough to have a team. So my girls who were committed to me ended up going over there because they weren't sure there was going to be enough girls to play War Eagle. So only my 18s did I know I had enough because I was able to say, yes, you can sign a contract with us. We will have 18U. Here's 10 committed. Your spot's secure. So we have a little different situation with that.
And Valerie, I understand that Rock Hill was one of the major areas that we were concerned with because some of the primary clubs that were doing it in the summer or now was the Charlotte area club. So my concern, and I don't have a answer or even I've got some ideas, but if is so that the clubs that want to just do a tryout in the fall and your clubs that do it in the summer, if the clubs in the summer lock a kid in, either by collecting money and saying no refunds, a contract that is or is not honored by Palmetto Region, say they're just playing through SAVL and no other, and doesn't play USAV. I'm trying to find a way that we can make equal playing grounds, which we have had for years, so that Sarah can try out for multiple clubs if she wants to and pick the one of her choice. I'm just using Sarah as an example, or any Sarah. So that's the difficult question. And as some people have asked, what are the clubs that are doing summer tryouts going to do? And I can say that most of the regions have no set rules because the rules cannot be enforced legally. And many have been taken to court challenging this, and it's been proven. That's what's coming from USAV. But I'd like to hear, is there other clubs that's online tonight that are considering summer or made a decision? And I was just curious what that answer would be. Are you asking for commitments and are you collecting funds early?
Hey, Jimmy, this is Tom Wisely with Myrtle Beach Volleyball.
Yeah.
Hey, I think one of the things I say is we just all have to be open. You know, Alex had called me probably 3 weeks ago. You know, we've got a friendship that goes back. He called me, said, hey, Carolina Region is having early tryouts. We have to do it. Meaning him and I both.
Right.
Yeah, but I've got girls that come down. I've probably got 13 or 14 girls that come down out of that region. So, you know, it's one of those for all of us as club directors. We just got to be open with other club directors. Do we like what everybody's doing? Absolutely not. Do they like what we're doing? You know, some of them do, some of them don't. But at the end of the day, if we just, you know, I can call Alex at 9 o'clock tonight and say, hey, Alex, you know, are you taking money? Or, you know, I saw that. Now, I did see on his website that it's an evaluation. It's not a tryout.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and we are doing it. I think to be fair to the girls around this area, we have to do it at the same time Alex does. We're the only two clubs here now.
And folks, I'll say again, is the climate is changing in junior volleyball. This is coming, like it or not, is coming, and we have to adapt to it. And as I said in the start, work the problem. Let's figure out a way that's fair. We're in the playground playing fair with each other. I have told the board, and I've spoke to many regions, is that's why they're getting out of the policing business on tryouts, is it's almost impossible for us to police it and hold somebody's feet to the fire. I can tell you in the 30-something years I've done it, I bet you I can count on one hand, because we require, if a club's doing something wrong, we require a parent or the player to actually write us a letter and sign it. And like I said, I can count on one hand the number of people that's done that over the years, and I probably have dozens of complaints every year, dozens and dozens. So we got to find a way to play well together in the sandbox.
I just want to say that we're on the fence. We're considering it because the only reason I am is because as a club director, this is so new to me. I just don't want to be the one that says, no, I'm going to wait till November, and then all the other Columbia clubs go ahead and do early tryouts. So I was planning, and I'm still planning, to maybe put an email thread together with all, like I think Jessica said, get your pod of clubs that's in your area, say, what's everybody feeling about? And, you know, what do you think? Now, I think there'll still be maybe 1 or 2 clubs that do their own thing no matter what, but I think it's important to maybe find out, like I said, I know we're all competitors, but if we can kind of get on the same page and say, yeah, we're going to do it, or no, we're not going to do it. I'm willing to try to do it, but I don't have to do it. So I guess maybe it's a matter of just us all getting together in whatever area we're in. Like Tom, I understand what he's doing because he's so close to the border there with Alex. But I do feel like if even one club does it here in Columbia, that's going to start the ball rolling. And I almost feel like we all need to. So,
yeah.
So Sue, for that, most of the upstate, I've either contacted, talked to them, or seen their posts. Everybody from the upstate is staying with fall except for Upward.
Okay.
We are very vocal on social media. I've seen, I think, 8 different posts from all the directors and the clubs around here. Everybody's standing with it with the same exact reasoning for all of it. It's not good for the athletes. It's not good for the families. Yeah, it's not good for high school.
Who's
Well, I
speaking?
think
Wait a minute. So who's speaking? Who's
that was the,
It's Lauren. My computer ran out, so I had to go to my phone.
Okay, sorry. Okay.
Yeah, Jimmy, I've talked to pretty much most of the directors around here or seen their social media. I've had a lot of parents specifically reach out and give us props for putting a statement and holding our ground to fall.
And that's, and Region has no problem with that whatsoever. For fairness for other clubs, is I still would like to have answers on how clubs, if they're doing it early, are they locking kids in, commitments, money, considering releasing them in the fall, stuff like that. That would be, I think would be important to know.
So do we as the Palmetto region then like need to come up with, you know, if you do decide to, if you're a Palmetto region club, we have to come up with a set of rules this year? Or is that what we're trying to do? This is Haley.
No, I really want to just hear comments. The board is considering what many regions are doing, which is hands off the policing of tryouts. They basically, a lot of regions just say you can start after early July, which is usually after USAV Nationals, which is the last national tournament played. And then they say we'll recognize a contract or a membership. If they're a dual member, if they join in USAV, we will recognize it on a specific date. A lot of them are doing September 1, which is when it opens up. I would be a proponent this year, at least, of the regular November signing date, to give the clubs that are doing it in the fall that same opportunity. But right now, I'm listening so that myself and the board can discuss to come up with recommendations.
Jimmy, with all due respect. Oh,
Who's this?
this is Andrew again. With all due respect, I don't understand how you and the board gave waivers before these questions are even answered. So it's after the fact, we're trying to put the toothpaste back in the tube.
the main reason is because it didn't matter if we gave a waiver or not. They were going to do it.
Right.
They don't need our permission.
We want to give the
think
clubs that were USAV only the opportunity to compete.
But then I don't understand. Then what we come up with doesn't even matter then, based on what you're saying. I mean, it's just, I mean, I'm not.
For future years, so that we can try to get all on a similar playing ground.
But you're saying, this is Jan, but you're saying that it's basically hands off as far as what clubs are allowed to or not allowed to do for tryouts. So really, there's no decisions to be made right now. It sounds like that decision has already been made.
Just do whatever you want.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
What's being misunderstood, though, it's not a decision that's being made by the board or Jimmy. It's under their umbrella of what they are under. They're giving us the courtesy of letting us know. It has nothing to do with us.
So Sue, if you move to tryouts, are you also going to charge the $150 to your athletes the way that Upward is? I mean, that's on their website. That's for everyone to see. So are you also going to lock them in with with $150?
I have no idea. I'm just trying to figure this out. I really don't know. I just know that we eventually have to do it. And I don't know if I should just rip the Band-Aid off and do it this year or try to muddle through and get through till next year. But then do we run the risk of other clubs in Columbia doing it? I have no idea what I'm doing. This is kind of an information.
I put it in the chat and I just want to say it. And, you know, if other Greenville clubs want to say that I'm wrong, but I think for Greenville, it's really hard because, you know, Upward has the advantages of having their own gym and, you know, Carolina One, we do as well, but there are a lot of clubs up here that if we all didn't kind of band together and do what we're doing now and supporting not only our clubs, but our girls and our athletes, then we would have a lot of clubs who would literally not be able to have a tryout, because they don't have the space lockdown, especially with COVID and everything like that. So I don't know. It's a very frustrating process for sure. But I think the one thing that I would like to understand too, Jimmy, whenever you get to talk to Corey or whoever does decide to answer us, is the payment of $150, and they actually will start paying their fees. That's on their website. So these girls will be locked in. And I just want to say that for our Greenville clubs, we keep trying to say, well, they are locked in. No matter which way we look at it, they're paying the $150 and then they start their payment plans. And that is on their website for everyone to see.
Okay, and then this is Jan. I have another question. I have a question, and I know it sounds like we're all talking about Upward right now, but what was Upward's reason for feeling the need to have summer tryouts? I'm not really understanding that. Aren't they the largest or one of the largest clubs in the state?
Theirs was, they have players that actually live in the Carolina region, and they have players that are members of theirs that were going to try out with these clubs in the Carolina region. And they also have kids in the Carolina region that they would like to attract. So when Carolina region decided to do early tryouts, it forced their hand to try to do something to save the kids.
So to just summarize that, it's not actually about the best interests of the players. It's about trying to recruit the strongest players to have the strongest club to be able to compete. It's not actually about the interests of the players or the families.
Correct.
And so I would agree with what Haley's saying to an extent, which is that, is that we do have a choice. There is a choice. The choice may be that you guys, or smaller groups of clubs band together, and there's enough opportunity for the families that don't like this and that don't want to do it, that there's a place for those families to play. That is a choice. It may not be a choice that all club directors want to make. It may not be a choice that we decide to make 2-3 years from now, but it is a choice of what players and what families you are willing to forego if you feel strongly one way or the other, on one side or the other of this debate.
And also, just to that point about Upward, they can lock them in because people across the country are doing it already. They already do their tryouts and they lock everybody in before school season. So it isn't like it's unheard of. This is happening all over the country. It's kind of just the first time it's come to us.
Yeah, and it's just disappointing. I think the point that I'm trying to make is it's very disappointing when it's 3 weeks out and then it's also going to 100% conflict with high school tryouts. I'm coming at it from a club director, but also very much disappointed as a high school coach. So,
right.
We're not the only region that this is happening to. Southern region is seeing some of this. Carolina region obviously saw the same thing. They had to make a late decision. He wrote me, I don't know when their decision was made, but he wrote me late June, 21st, 2nd, somewhere along there.
Jimmy, this is Michael Coleman with Chapin Volleyball Club. I'd just like to make a quick statement and then I have a question for you. We are, for those of you who don't know us, we are a brand new club, started last year. We are north of Columbia in the Chapin area. We literally had 2 teams last year. We started our club primarily, well, actually for no other reason than travel down Interstate 26 going into Columbia is getting to be a nightmare. And we just had a group of folks who just wanted to try to play volleyball north of the lake instead of having to drive all the way around to the southern end. I'm retired military. I don't make a dime off of our club. Don't need to, don't want to. It is purely about growing athletes through volleyball and growing young people through volleyball and supporting our local school programs, and which we have very good relationships with the schools around us. We also, and I have been in direct contact with Sue. Sue is down the road from us on the other side of the lake, and I have told Sue, hey, we're not doing summer tryouts. I don't believe in it. I don't think it's the right thing to do. I think it is an unnecessary burden. And so unless we move, somehow we're to move clear to almost to the end of the school year to get that far away from conflicting with the schools, I just do not see how that this is a positive thing to do. So and Jimmy, I've sent you an email. You know how I feel about it. I think at the end of the day, I agree with someone a moment ago saying, hey, they do have a choice. At the end of the day, is it about what's best for these, for the majority of the players, not just these small handful that are being recruited and the supposed pressure that's out there, or is it about the or are we going to truly step up as directors and do what's in the best interest of our families, and are we willing to step up and do that over above our business bottom line? Now that's where we stand, and so we are going to be in the fall. That's what we believe in. And I don't see us as a club now or anytime in the near future going to summer. That said, Jimmy, my question for you is, as you've spoken to other regions that have been at this for a while, have they given you any inclination how they were able to make this work in a constructive way? Have they had any best practices that they've communicated with you? Or has it just become the Wild West?
I wouldn't call it Wild West. I've probably talking personally in the last week or 10 days to 8 or 9 commissioners or CEOs. And for the most part, and they're sending me actually the details that I'm asking for them to send. I wanted to really find out about the concerns that I've asked upward, which is if not all clubs do the tryouts at the same time, then how do you handle kids being able to try out with multiple clubs? And 2, if they start collecting early, does the clubs consider giving them a release and stuff like that? So it does vary. It varies with every one of them slightly, not a lot. But for the ones that I've talked to, and I actually just got off the phone about an hour ago with Andy with North Texas, they've done it for 4 or 5 years now. And he said it's a positive for them. He said they have a couple of kinks that they've worked out over the years, but it's a positive for them. But I haven't talked with anybody that started it and reverted back to fall tryouts. So I am trying to put together kind of a summary of what everybody's doing and getting some details. But as I said, we're not forcing anybody's hand. We're not saying do it. We're just saying here's the atmosphere right now. Consider what you want.
Sure, and I would appreciate as you receive those, obviously, I'd love to see what those best practices are and how they have maneuvered as regions over the years they've been doing this, because it does sound like maybe there are some positives that some of us that are adamantly against this are not seeing, and I'm open to my mind changing. But at this point, it just seems an awful burden, and and then I guess it's just like, I guess it would be like up to Sue and I having a conversation and others in our area of saying, hey, if they try out in the summer, are you going to commit them? If they say, hey, you can play for our team in the summer, can I still have a tryout for those same girls and give them an opportunity in the fall? I guess that's just a local conversation that we'll have to have.
Thank you. I still get some of the same questions, which is a kid starts in paying and says they'll play for a club in August, for example, and come November, late October, November, we have other clubs doing tryouts. Will they give a refund if they collect money? Will they release them from the contract? Can we do anything? The first few is I don't know yet. I have asked those questions specifically to Corey and Ben, not to Alex, but to Corey and Ben, and I do plan on getting those answers to see how the logistics of what they're planning to do works. And I may even try to find out what the Carolina region is doing. I have tried calling Kevin back, but he's on a vacation currently.
I do want to say one thing, on the other side of the coin. When this all came up a couple days ago, it just so happened that we had our family picnic, our Lake Murray family picnic on Saturday. And I floated the idea to a core of like, I don't know, it was about 15 parents. Hey, if this happened, what would your thoughts be? And I really expected a ton of backlash. And after they thought about it for a second, they all said they wouldn't mind getting it over with and getting the pressure of the tryout done before high school. But now when I say that, if I would do it, it'd be on a dead week or a weekend. I would never interfere with high school because like I said, I'm a high school coach too. So that other stuff, that's something else altogether. But I was surprised to hear them talk about it and say it would be nice to have it over with. We can enjoy our high school season, just not have any pressure and just roll right into practices. So there is the other side. You'd be surprised maybe to hear from some of your parents. I know if we present it a certain way to parents, then they will have a reaction, I think. But I guess what I'm trying to say is if we know we have to get to this at some point we have to spin it in a positive nature so that we can all just make that change. I don't know if it's going to happen this year, but looks like we're going to definitely have to do it next year. And like I said, I've talked to a couple of people out of region also, and they said that it's worked really well for them. Now, if anybody knows me, when we first brought this up at the director meeting 2 years ago, I was screaming that I hated it. I hated it, hated it, hated it. And I've just been doing a lot more research on it and, looking into it. And, I guess it just depends how you look at it. So I just want to throw that out as the other side of what we're seeing.
So we had the exact opposite reaction with ours. Ours said stay fall.
I know. Okay. Well, I'm just saying that there are, it's not everybody's going to feel one way. That's all I'm saying.
Let me ask this. I want to make sure I've got them right. The questions that we want to clarify are payments being made. If so, would they be refunded and would a release be granted for the fall? 1, 2, are contracts being signed and commitments being taken? And same question, would those be released if a kid wanted to try out with another club later? And 3, practice conflicts with high school. Am I missing something else that we should find out?
Jimmy, I don't think it's just practice conflicts. I think it's practice period.
Yeah.
You're just saying during high school season.
Correct.
Yeah.
Jimmy, this is Clay Wiles with Upstate Volleyball. In tune with that, has anybody considered maybe partnering with the high school league? I know in certain sports, I currently coach football now too, and I know it's illegal to participate in club athletics at the same time you're on a roster with a high school. It seems like maybe within this organization here, and all the great minds have spoken and said, how detrimental this is to kids and their families, that we might have the leadership in here maybe to go to the high school league. It seems odd to me that we would allow, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but it seems like to me we're allowing a few kids from North Carolina to come in and dictate our club situation and also potentially partner with the high school deal and interfere with the practices and the tryouts, as Coach Carino talked about. So it seems odd to me that we couldn't assemble a coalition of people. We may have those people on this call already who could go to the high school league and say, look, we're to the point now where interscholastically this has become a negative thing, and we need to make a rule where maybe we couldn't get the tryouts moved. And really the tryouts mean nothing, I think, to most people here without the practice and the interference with high school. So maybe that's a solution somebody could look into, is approaching the high school league and saying, hey, can y'all make this a rule where these kids can't be, basically run ragged during volleyball season?
Jan may have more insight on this, but I did talk to Paula Kirkland, Dorman coach, been in round for 30 plus years. She said we probably would not have a lot of feedback from a South Carolina high school league. You get it mostly from schools and coaches, but point taken. And I guess
rules committee set up of coaches. That's kind of my point.
Right. Yeah. I guess the point is I would bet that over half of the clubs here tonight do something through the high school season: clinics, private practices, open gyms.
Yeah, we're talking about a team roster practice, though.
Right. Correct. Now,
that'd be easy. I mean, it's outlawed in football. I mean, when I was at Spartanburg, we had to forfeit a middle school season because a kid was doing that.
Right.
They're not supposed to be doing that.
Yeah.
I mean, it violates everything we're trying to do. It's not best for the kids. And that's the reason why it's almost, it's a little, I guess, disheartening. I just think it's horrible for these kids. There's a lot of great people speaking up with it. And it's like, well, it's the way we look at it. And I'm going, I don't know if it is. It's just not.
I will say this, Play, is that in the email I did get from Upward, I can't remember if it was Ben or Corey, but they did assure me that they would not be conflict. They would not have team practices, but it'd be kind of like an open gym type thing. Now, we'll have to see that, similar to what other ones do. But in talking to other regions, a good many of them do have a rule of a dead period really for team practices through high school season. The problem you run into is, just like tryouts, it's almost impossible to police.
Yeah, no, and here's the beautiful thing about it. You don't have to police it, because if it's a high school league rule, then it becomes their burden. A kid's now dealing with all that, and you got athletic directors on your side. I think if we go and approach that from that side of it, you got a lot more. I mean, you win a lot more with sugar than you do, crap, so to speak. So I think you can go to high school league and say, look, this is what's happening. These are how our kids affected. There's probably that leadership on this board. There's probably people listening to me talk right now who know those folks and can call and probably make that happen. Again, I don't know if is it too much to ask those guys to move that tryout date to a dead period?
I did ask that question, and I think the response, this was Upward, sorry, and not again, don't know about Alex. They felt that there was a lot of parents on vacation. I'm just passing along what I was told.
Oh, certainly. Well, hey, that's a true statement, because that's the reason why it's dead week, where kids can actually spend some time. Again,
I hate that we're having to react to a situation, but and I do believe I'm gonna have the faith, prayer and faith, that the two organizations can work together for what's best for everybody in the future. They're reacting to what Carolina Region did. We're now reacting to what's going on. It's a trickle down effect. I hate it, absolutely hate it. It's certainly, I was hoping we'd get through this season, but we're we're facing the facts right now.
This is Jan. I think that might not be a bad suggestion. Actually, I was an athletic director for 17 years at St. Joe's, so I know the high school league very well, very involved. The issue that we would have is, if we wanted to even try to get something like that passed, is the length of time to do it through the high school league. There's a process that would take a while. So,
and this year's gone. I mean, I think we all kind of listen here, understand that. We're talking about 365 days from now.
Right. Yeah. But I don't know why it would be worth a shot at trying to do something like that. Like, why not?
It's definitely worth the attempt. I just think, there's a lot of good people who are cared about children here. I don't want to put the cart before the horse. I hear things like, well, this is inevitable. And then I hear it's bad for children. I just don't, those two don't stack up in my mind. And I don't think it does for a lot of people here. And I think that's maybe a better method to approach it, because, just listen to it. There's not a lot going on here on this call that we can do. That's very evident through the conversation. It's just not. So we need to maybe try to reach out to those organizations who can get it done.
There's just one thing I wanted to say, just to clarify something. What we're suggesting, even moving forward in the future, is to have the tryout, and then that's the end of it. Then we have dead period during high school. And also the tryouts should be during dead periods or weekends. So we're not a proponent at all of having this affect high schools. So I think we're getting a little confused that, if you have early tryouts, then we want you all to have practices. If I did it, I wouldn't have any practices. We'd have a tryout. That'd be the end of it. They go play their high school season. We meet again in November. That's what I'm talking about. I want to make that clear for myself.
Yeah, are you running
no way.
Dead week then?
Pardon me?
Are you running tryouts during dead week then?
I have no idea what I'm doing, but if I did do it, it would be during dead week.
Yeah, and I think when it boils down to all this is like, of course, there's some people upset because of the time frame of people not understanding, why are we finding out? One gentleman mentioned he found out about 3 weeks ago. It's like, why the timing is the problem. That's a whole nother issue. But, if it's coming, it's got to come. But we've got to figure out a way to protect these kids during that high school season. And I think that's important. And so, like I said, I think that's the biggest issue with everybody. If we can push this thing dead, and then it's before and after. The money thing that Haley brought up was a big deal too. There needs to be something in place there that kind of says, hey, look, there's refunds available, or if they're going to participate with us. But again, it's going to require, and forgive me, but it's going to require somebody's going to have to be pretty frank here and say, look, guys, if this is the way we have to do it, and if it's not done, then there has to be some level of accountability. Otherwise, these conversations are just, hopeless words. I mean, somebody's going to have to say, look, this is what we're going to do, and this is the way it is. And if not, however negatively impacted, it may start with us. If we miss out some people to tournament or something like that, something's going to have to be done in that realm, no matter what. And I think that's a lot of people's frustration, is the fact that we are reactive in these situations. So we're having to react to it. Now it's like, well, I don't know if that makes sense, but.
Anybody else? All right, folks, with that being said, if there's nothing else, I will continue to get answers on this. I hopefully by tomorrow, and I'll send it out to everybody. The board will be meeting soon. I think it's the next weekend, and we'll try to come up with some guidelines or what the region's going to do. I will say that I'm more of a proponent of not trying to be a police force on situations like this, but to come up with, and if you read the Carolina region's statement, they're basically doing recommendations there, because you can't, as I said earlier, we cannot enforce some of these things legally, and that's coming from our attorney and the attorney with USAB. Final words, anything, guys? I am sorry we're having to make this telephone call and deal with this after we went through last season, and we were probably only we were in the 50th percentile of being able to actually finish the season. A lot of seasons closed. I was hoping to have a good start and a good season this year, and I still think we'll have a good season. I do really believe, and some of you people have said this is not going to affect but probably 5 or 10% of your kids, maybe none at all for a lot of you, especially the smaller clubs. But FYI for everybody, we'll try to keep you posted. Sue, any closing remarks from the board?
Yeah, I just want to make it, I'm muddling through with you. I'm just trying to do what's best for our club. And I think if we just continue to talk about it, and Jimmy will keep talking to the regions and find out how we can do it. And if we can just keep the high school coaches at the forefront of our mind and just make sure that we're not interfering with them, I think that's the number one thing.
Thank you, everybody.
Hey, Jimmy?
Yes.
Hey, Jimmy, can you hear me okay? It's Tina, I'm driving in the rain.
Okay.
I'm really concerned for the smaller clubs with, for our coaching staff. The majority of our coaches and assistant coaches are school coaches. And when it comes to having these early tryouts, our players and families want to know who their coaches are, what we're doing, and all that kind of stuff. And quite often, we can't get commitment from our coaches when they're in their season. So I'm just concerned that that's going to be a big drawback for your smaller clubs that are in that situation. And we have the other end with Club Savannah, and they are in SABL, but they have not decided to go to this early tryout as of yet. But I just think that's something we really need to take into consideration, that you have these small, stronger clubs that are really going to be affected by it as well.
Thank you, Tina. And I would, in closing, I would encourage everybody, if you have questions or comments concerning this that you'd like for the region to consider, just email me and put it down. But I've got those that everybody's listed so far. Everybody have a good night. Sorry to bother you on a Sunday evening. Keep this in your prayers, and let's hope that we get through this season and work this problem, and everybody have a good year. Thanks, everybody. Good night.
All right, thanks, Jimmy.